Hi Year 10. Today we're going to go through the assessment that you had on Formulate and Functions 2 weeks ago. Going to have a look at some of the questions that you as a class you struggled with, and we're going to have a bit of practice at those particular type of questions. So your learning objective is to evaluate the assessment and to practice questions based on that evaluation. So feedback from the MathsWatch test was as follows. The class average was 51%. If you got a score of 60% or higher, then I was pleased. The main questions that you found difficult were actually grouped. There was questions 4, 5 and 6, which I'm going to go through on the next slide. And then there was questions 10, 11 and 12. Now, I'm going to go through those questions on the next slide, but if you are still struggling with those questions, I've put 2 links on here. The first one here is for changing the subject of an equation or a formula, and the second one was for factorising quadratics. So have a look through these slides, through this recording, have a go at the practice, but if you're still struggling, go back and look at those. Right, this was question 4. The subject of the formula below is y, rearranged to make x the subject. So we have y equals 4x plus 3. So we've got y on its own at the moment, y is the subject. We need to try and get x on its own. So that step 1 is to consider the last thing that happened on the right hand side of this equation. And the last thing that happens, if we read it, we'll see what the last thing's. 4 times x, add 3. The last thing I said was add 3. So, because that's the last thing that we did to that side of the equation, that's what we want to get rid of. That's what we want to do the opposite of first. So plus 3, the opposite of plus 3 is subtract 3. So there's our first line, y equals 4x plus 3. If we subtract 3 from both sides, we'll get y minus 3 on the left hand side, and we'll be left with 4x on its own on the right hand side. Step 2 is to now look at the last thing that happened to x. 4 multiplied by x is on the right side, so we need to do the opposite of 4 multiplied by 4 to get rid of that and to be left with x on its own. So if we divide both sides of our equation by 4, we will have x on its own. And there we go. If we divide y minus 3 by 4, we get y minus 3 divided by 4. If we divide 4x by 4, we will get x or 1x. So there is our final formula rearranged with x as the subject. X equals to y minus 3 divided by 4. So as long as you go through it step by step and you think about what the last thing that happened on the one side of the equation, and we do the opposite of that so that we can get rid of each element. Right, so here was the next one. Question 4, 5 and 6 were very similar, all about rearranging to make x the subject. Y equals x plus p minus q. Again, if I read it out, I would say x plus p minus q, or subtract q. The last thing I said was subtract q, so that now I'm going to do the opposite to that so that I get rid of q from the right hand side. So I'm going to add q to both sides. If I add q to both sides, I'll get y plus q on the left, and I'll get x plus p on the right because I've subtracted the q to get rid of it from the right hand side. I'm planning to get x on its own, so I have to get everything else away from x. Now the last thing I did now was x plus p, so I'm going to do the opposite of plus p. I'm going to subtract p, and I'll get y plus q minus p equals x. It doesn't matter that x is on the right hand side. I can interchange that, so I can just swap that around to say x equals to y plus q subtract p. Question 6, also similar, so see if you can have a go at this one. Pause the recording if you can. If not, follow the step by step. Step 1, we need to get x on its own, so we want to read out that right hand side and see what the last thing we did. 4x divided by 10 minus p. The last thing I said was minus p, so we're going to do the opposite of that. We're going to add p on both sides. I'd get a plus p on the left, and I'd have 4x divided by 10 on the right because I've got rid of my p. Step 2, if I read it out again, I've got 4x divided by 10. The last thing I said was divide by 10, so I'm now going to multiply by 10 to get rid of the 10. I'll have 10 multiplied by a plus p. I need to put that in brackets because it's not going to be 10a plus p. It's going to be 10a plus 10p. You can write it like that if you want to, or we can keep it in the brackets. Equals to 4x on the right hand side. Now, step 3, we're going to multiply. We multiplied by 4x, so we're going to divide by 4 to get x on its own. So we're going to have 10 multiplied by a plus p divided by 4 equals x. Now I could have written that as 10a plus 10p divided by 4. That would be okay, but that is fine as it is. Right, so activity 1, please. What I'd like you to do is to have a go at these questions below. They are all on rearranging the subject, rearranging the formula, sorry, to make different letter the subject. Question 1 are a little bit easier than question 2, so have a go at those and see how you get on. If you're struggling, watch the Corbett Maths video links that were in the first slide. Right, so the next set of questions, the last set of questions that we struggled with were on quadratics. So here we go. Just a reminder of how to factorise quadratics. If you've got x squared plus so many x plus so many, then you need to write 2 brackets out and set it up like this. Now if you've got an x squared as the first term, that means x plus x equals x squared, so we put an x in each bracket. That's our first step. Second step is to have a look at the last term. In this case it's 16. And we need to take note of the sign as well. So it's positive 16, and we need to write down all the factors that could make positive 16. 1 times 16, 2 times 8, and 4 times 4. Now I could have minus 1 times minus 16 also here. I could have minus 2 times minus 8, and I could have minus 4 times minus 4. So I do need to make sure that I can have both signs. Once I've got those factors, I need to choose which factors are going to fit. And the way that I do that is I look at the middle term. The middle term here is positive 10x. So I want to look at these factors here, which pair will add together to make 10x. Well, I can see straight away that 2 and 8 equals to 10. So they're the ones I'm going to use. So our final step is to put those into the brackets. So we put the 2 in the one bracket and the 8 in the other, and then we could do a quick check at the end to see if we've got it right. X times x is x squared, x times 8 is 8x, 2 times x is 2x, so 8x plus 2x is 10x, and 2 times 8 is 16. So we can do a check to make sure that we know. So this one, very similar, but quite often on those questions it was getting the signs wrong that made you lose your mark. So you do need to make sure. So here we've got a negative 14x, and plus 48. So we need to make sure our signs are right. So we set up our brackets and our x's. Now we look at the last value. It's 48, positive 48. We consider all the pairs of factors. 1 times 48, 2 times 24, 4 times 12, 6 times 8, or I can have minus 1 times minus 48, minus 2 times minus 24, minus 4 times minus 12, and minus 6 times minus 8. I need to look at those to see which ones, if I add them together, will give me minus 14. Well, I can see that if I do minus 6 and minus 8, that will give me minus 14, which will give me that middle value. So now I put them into my brackets, and I will get x minus 6 and x minus 8. Quick check. X squared minus 6x minus 8x is minus 14x. Minus 6 times minus 8 is positive 48. And the last one here, again, this one involved thinking about your signs even more. We need a positive and a negative sign in this one. So we set up the 2 brackets and add the x's. Then we look at the last value. It could be, now in this case, it could only be minus 1 times positive 3 or minus 3 times positive 1. They will be the only pairs that will give us the minus 3. So we now need to look and see which one will give us minus 2 when we add them together. If we do minus 1 plus 3, we will get positive 2. But if we do minus 3 plus 1, we will get negative 2, which is what we need. We need a negative 2 here. So it's got to be minus 3 and plus 1. We pop them in the brackets and we do a quick check. X squared Minus 3x plus 1x is minus 2x. Minus 3 times 1 is minus 3. Super. Right, can you please now have a go at these questions on factorising? Again, they get harder as they go through each question. So now you should have attempted all the questions on the PowerPoint. I've put the answers on the next slide so that you can mark them, but I would like you please to upload your work, take a photograph and upload it please, so that I can see how you've got on and check to see if we've got that understanding in those areas, because there were quite a few of you that got those sections wrong in the assessment. I hope you've done really well, and then I hope you go on to have a lovely half term. Thank you very much.